All right, so the next part of the analysis, they're basically just dividing the accompaniment part into three distinct sections. One is this sort of three distinct rhythmic sections. So there's sort of a distinct triplet 16th note, and then there's a duple 8th note, followed by a 4-tone chord. You can see here, triplet, duplet 8th notes, 4-tone chord. We get the duplets back, and then we get our triplets, duplets, 4-tone chord, triplet, duplet, 4-tone chord. So this is a little bit of a stretch, but then we get our triplet passage, essentially a duplet, triplet, 4-tone chord. So it's not always in order, but essentially he's breaking it up into these three figures, and you don't really see much variation on that. Yeah, the most variation you see is just like the occasional quarter note. Okay, so beyond that, then they're taking these triplets, so they took all of the little triplet passages. So you can see this one, before measure 1, this one, measure 2, this one, measure 3, and they're basically putting them right here. So they're collecting them all, kind of like Pokemon. Catch them all. So you've got F sharp, F natural, D. So that's our first little triplet. So 0, 1, 2. Obviously that's the beginning of our prime row, so that's prime. And then our next little triplet, they transposed it again, but so our next little triplet is not 0, 1, 2, right? It's based on, but if it were transposed, that's what it would be. If it were retrograde inversion 2. So you can look here, and they're saying this could be a piece of retrograde inversion 2. As well as this, the 9, 10, 11. Okay? So they're just analyzing it that way. They're just pulling these apart. Now, if we were to transpose these properly, this would be not 7. So for prime is F sharp, this would be 1, right? And the E natural would be 10. And then this would be D sharp, which is going to be 9. So 1, 10, 9, 0, 1, 2. Okay? So think about it in those terms, and then we can look at our matrix. And let's look for a 0, 10, 9, or 1, 10, 9. So here we go. This is what they're pointing out. 1, 10, 9. So it's a lot easier to find if you don't transpose this stupidly like they do in the book. Alright? So they're just breaking these up and saying, hey, but you can find, even though this is all part of the prime row, you can find this little snippet in retrograde inversion 2. And you can also find this little snippet in retrograde inversion 2. Okay? So that's all that is. And then they do the same thing, and they keep going, so there's even more. There's a lot of these. And then they talk about the 8th note figure. So they note that most the two-tone 8th note figures are made of half steps, so half step, except for in measure 2 and measure 5 and 6, where it's more than a half step, right? So here we've got a perfect fourth, and here we have a minor sixth, no, major sixth. And then we go back to our little half steps. And they go either up, some of them go down, but they're always in half steps. So they're just pointing that out. Also our 4-tone chord. So they're looking at all of these combinations, right? So they pulled out all of the 4-tone chords that are stacked up, and then just pulled out what row they're from and further broke it down, basically. Then they talk a little bit about the dynamics. So these are just general observations. Third line of each strophe is marked with a soft dynamic. The first line of each strophe begins loud and soft. Each strophe accompaniment begins loud and ends soft. Tempo is usually slowed at the end of each line or strophe. All right, so they're just discussing start loud, soft, right? Forte to piano, forte to piano. So starts loud and soft. Okay? So in assignment 17.1, your job, should you choose to accept it, is to analyze this first piece. Des Herzens Purpurvogel Fliegel Durchnacht. The Heart's Purple Eagle Flies by Night by Weber. So it's nice and short. It's only 2 pages. It ends on this page. This is 17.02. Don't do this one. Just do this first one. So basically you're going to break it up. And so this work, they say, is based on the same 12-tone row as the song analyzed in, so the song we just talked about analyzing. So you can find this row. So here's our first row. It's going to be C, A, G sharp, B, and then careful, we go into treble clef here. F sharp, A sharp or B flat, could go either way. Again, we don't distinguish in harmonics. G, E, and then D sharp, F natural, notice we're in bass clef, D, and C sharp. So we've got, and here's the order. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so here's our first 12 pitches of the piece right here. Okay? So again, this is the order. This is not what the pitch corresponds to on the piano, right, chromatically. It's just the literal order of the pitches. Now, if we go through, this is our initial row. So your job is to, and I want this, so according to this, this statement, the C, A, G sharp, B, etc., can be found in RI 7. So let's look at RI 7. Right here. Find out. So our retrograde inversion 7 is right here. So if we look, it does line up. We've got C, A, G sharp, B, F sharp, A sharp, G, E, D sharp, F, D, C sharp. So this row right here, starting with C, you're going to take this guy and just transfer it across here. Okay? So this will be C, A, G sharp, etc. And then you're going to fill out your matrix using retrograde inversion 7. So for our purposes, retrograde inversion 7, inversion 7 equals, that's going to be your prime, okay? So analyze it based on that. So make a new prime row using this as your prime row and make a totally new matrix, okay? That's what I would like you to do because I think it'll be less confusing than trying to use this one. It's going to look super crazy. So make your own matrix. That's your first step based on this row, and I've given it to you, handed it to you on a silver platter, all right? And then if you want to, and you can analyze it any way you want, but either way, so then of course we call this prime, this is our first section. So you can either make a matrix like this using actual letter names, or, so this would be your first row, or you can transfer it, and so you can take this prime row, So now our new prime, our new 0, is going to be C, right? It's not going to be F sharp anymore because we're switching our prime row. So C is now 0. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then, of course, C, if you go up to 12, C and 12, or 0 and 12 are the same, right? Because they're both octaves. So you don't have to put in 12. So then you're just going to go down here and label 0, 9, 8, 11, 6, 10, 7, 4, 3, 5, 2, 1. Okay? So if you want to do numbers, here's your prime row. If you want to do note names, here's your prime row. And you can do either. Either works. So then you can make your matrix. So then your numbers would end up being right here, and then you make your matrix based on that. Again, remember 0, 0, 0 all the way across diagonally, or in this case it would be C, 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 C all the way across diagonally. So you're going to make a matrix, and I will upload an empty matrix for you guys to fill out. And then what you can do is analyze these rows based on the matrix that you create. Now, one way that people do this is, so here's our order, our actual order of the notes. Here, we can go through and actually just label the actual where it fits on the matrix. So C's are going to be 0, F's are all going to be 9, or sorry, A's are all going to be 9, right? G's are all going to be 8. So if we go over here, we can look at the vocal part and see how that fits. And I don't have a matrix built for you guys, but basically what you're going to do is to find out the order of your next rows, because some of these, I've got to say, are going to, like in this case, just because I already know what the answers are, know that your fourth note in the piece is actually going to end up being in the vocal part. All right, so you're going to have to do some manipulation to make these tones work. So one of the easiest ways to go through and do this, and it's a little bit time intensive in the beginning, but you start to get fast at it, is to literally give every single note a number. And then all you're doing is looking for number orders, and you just take your matrix and you start looking for ways to fill it in. So in this case, we've got C is going to be 0. Again, E flat, find our E flat, or D sharp, 3. Right? E natural, find your E natural, 4. Right? C sharp, it's going to be 1. F sharp, 6. Okay? And then here, so here's where it can get a little confusing. So let's look at